Hi, welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at how we can use Java and MongoDB to talk and work with the database. So we've got over here in my project, we can see the actual structure of it first. So when we're working with MongoDB, we've got a couple things we have to do. As you can see over here on the left in the Package Explorer, we have the reference libraries that we're using for this. And I'm using the BSON 510 jar and the MongoDB driver core sync and SLF4J. The BSON MongoDBs are all 5.10 and the SLFJ, the log tool, is 2.0.13. Check to make sure you have the latest version of those jar files for you. Again, we have to use those external archives because of the fact that JSON, excuse me, we have to use those external archives because, well, JSON didn't exist before Java was created in the first place, so it's not something that's built into it. And also MongoDB is definitely way newer than Java as well. And so the actual connection for that has to be imported for that. This can be done either via Maven or other dependency handling tool, or like I did with using a jar file. And so I just added the jar files to my class path and have it spelled out right there. You can see that's how it's referencing my structure inside the project with that. But you have to actually have those connections in there. That needs to be referenced as a reference library so you can have access to that. As in always, I use a package-based structure for when working with my Java projects, and I have my data.controller package and my data.secrets package. Now, with the data.secrets, this is where I have the information that I do not want to share publicly with my project. In the case right here, you can see I have Mongo app name, Mongo database, password Mongo, and username Mongo, because I don't want to share that information publicly. That information is potentially very private. You definitely want to have excess people accessing your data on the web or causing you to have to pay for their access. Causing you to have to actually pay for people to use your application when it's not even something you want to use. So you want to make sure when you have something that's access limited or rate costing, that you make sure you don't share that things publicly. I include my data.secrets, that folder. I exclude that from my GitHub repos because I want to not have that be shared publicly with that. Because again, you don't want to share passwords and information inside your public GitHub repos. That'd be a bad thing to do. So that's why I'm just sharing just the content of those static strings. And we'll see how those are working with inside our project here in just a second. But that's where we go with that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the actual structure of this. My runner, as always, is boring. We don't even talk about that. But what we do want to look at, now, before we even get into look at the actual, all of the code we're looking at, we want to take a look at always the very important structure of our imports, because imports are how you access all the components. Now, as always, I'm really big on spelling out all the imports I'm working with. As you can see right here, I have a whole stack of imports in this project. A couple I'm no longer using because I took out some code just for this demo right here. But the idea of what we do is I spell out explicitly the imports I'm using. I don't use the dot asterisk to cut things out, because you can see, especially as I'm writing the demo code, you can see all the component pieces that we're working with right here. You can see it's import com.mongodb dot, and then whatever component we're working with for the base level of those things, as well as import org.bson.document, conversions.bson, and json.json writer settings for those. And then I even have my external package for my passwords, things that, because I have it in a total separate package, because I don't want it actually in my regular code, so I have import data.secrets.datasecrets, the things I don't want to share. And so those imports are always critical. I try and group them in things that make sense so you can actually see what them when you're looking at that, but this is the basic structure to use to actually take a look at that structure. And again, I just have them going as I'm working with them, and I put them in to make sense with that. So go ahead and collapse those back out of the way, because I don't need to share them right now. We talk about the actual data members that we're working with. So the way I work with my controllers often is I have data members that actually hold the information I'm working with. And you can see right here, I have two strings. I have my Mongo connection and my database name. And so my Mongo connection is the connection string, how we actually access that database. And that follows the standard connection string protocol to actually put that together. And so if we take a look at that over here inside my constructor, I'm initializing the values for that using the stuff stored in my data.secrets package and datasecrets.username Mongo, my datasecrets.password Mongo. I can even store the entire connection string as a secret there as well if you wanted to. But because I want to actually show the actual structure of that, that's why I'm purposely doing this right here. So you can see that I have the protocol I'm working with, the MongoDB plus SRV, ::, and then that information gets passed to it, and then all my protocol options that get sent to that as well for the information for that. And that's where I'm actually accessing this database and how to work with that. And then my database name could be stored also right here inside MongoDB because I can have that stored as a secret. But I'm using the sample mflix example data for my code we're working with here, so you can actually reference that and see it as well. When you're talking to, say, for example, something that's not public, that's where you want to make sure that database name is not stored inside a public-facing document like what this is right here. So go ahead and we'll close the constructor. As you can see right here, I have a bunch of methods we're working with. The methods describe exactly what we're doing. So I have my demoListDatabases, my pingDatabase, my listCollections, creating a client, my start method where I go to start off everything inside Java, my demo connections, my sample query, showing simple movies, and find simple movies that takes a Mongo collection as a parameter. So if we take a look at the start, you can see that right now we've got the demo connections and sample query. That's what we're going for with this project. So we're going to take a look at these pieces right here and then step through them to see what to do and how those actually work. So demoConnections, I'm just calling my pingDatabase, my demoListDatabases, and listCollections for a specific database. So that's what we're doing to actually go through and work at this. And so those are the pieces we're doing as we go through this. So let's go ahead and take a look at the code for each of those methods. We'll run the project after that and actually look at the results afterwards to see how that happens. So first one we have is ping the database. So I'm going to go up here, open the method up so we can see what happens. And this is really spelled out so you can see all the pieces that are happening with it. So the first part, when pinging a database, we have to make a connection to the database itself. And I do that by making the server API variable and my Mongo client settings variables, where I grab the information, where I get access to the Mongo thing using the appropriate static factory methods, like server API.builder and Mongo clients.builder, where it builds the actual connection pieces using that Mongo connection string right here as that result from that. So I take the server API and the connection to build that information to make that client settings. That client settings is then used to create an actual Mongo client, which I put inside a try with resources block like we see right here. I'm going to say a Mongo database is get the database passing a database name. In this case, it's that sample influx data. And database.run command, new document, ping 1. So I'm going to create a brand new document with ping with value of 1. So really boring, but it simply just says, hey, I've made a connection to this. And if it's successful, it's pinged your deployment. You've successfully connected to MongoDB. This is just a quick way to actually see that you have a connection made to that database. So that's what we're doing with pingDatabase. Then we're going to go ahead and look at the actual list all the databases inside there. So this is the databases that we have access to inside this project, inside our MongoDB. Now, this is for a whatever you have. So this will list all the databases inside your MongoDB connection that you have access to. And so again, it has that same approach right there with the server API and the Mongo client settings that I then put into my Mongo client creation inside my try with resources. And then I'm just going to get a list of document databases where I'm going to say, hey, Mongo client, that parameter we used right there, I'm going to ask it to list its database into a new array list. Oh, great, make a new array list. That's easy peasy. I'll use the Java streams database.forEach, where I'm going to grab that and use the Lambda connection on there. So each DB that I'm referencing inside that database, I'm going to do systemout.println, and I'm going to take the DB to JSON. So I'm going to get the JSON value of that database. So actually take a look at what's inside that database right there. So that's all I'm doing to list all the databases I have access to in that project. So it's pretty easy, just as a quick little list, and it's just a simple for each, just a way to explore what's inside that database. And finally, we're going to take a look at the collections that are inside a specific database. So in listCollections, again, we're going to look at the actual thing that we work with when we're talking about MongoDB. MongoDB stores its information in a database in collections. So we have all of our databases, and inside each database are the collections, aka like the tables we'd see in a relational database. And so I'm going to do that same approach with the server API and the Mongo client settings, the same try with resources structure, but now instead of simply just creating the database itself, I'm going to go and create a list collection names iterable, which is going to collect all the collections, the groups of stuff inside that database, by database.listCollectionNames. So I'm going to get all the names that are inside that collection. I'm going to get all the collections inside that specific database. And then just using a standard for each with the string, I'm going to say string collection name inside collections, that list of iterable. I'm going to just print out the collection name. So I can simply just output that value out of there. So it's really quite easy just to output that information. And so that's what we have right here for doing that demo connections. You can see that I'm just going to print that all out. Now, this first thing right here, the SLF4JW, that warning, that's just saying that we're not having any providers. This automatically happens when you're using that logging tool, so we have that right there. So we first have our ping deployment is successfully connected to the MongoDB. So let's go ahead and move this so it belongs right here. And so we can see that we have our ping database happened. We successfully had that happen, so we're able to go through and ping that. We've connected the databases. And then we're going to go list all of our databases. And so we're listing our databases right here. And so I have my for each right here. And so listing all the databases and the JSON value of that DB2 JSON, using the Lambda notation for that line. And so I'm saying the name is friends and favorites, and the size on disk, whether it's empty and false, and gives the information of the JSON value about each of those databases I have. So I have friends and favorites, my dog database, phone numbers, employee appreciation, sample influx, admin, and local. So I have access to all those components. That's the databases I can work with on this example client connection I'm working with. So we can see exactly how that works. And finally, we're going to list the connections that are inside the Mflix database. So inside the database, I have theaters, embedded movies, sessions, comments, and users. So those are all the collections of data that are stored inside that. And this is how we can actually use Java to make that happen. We can see how the list collections grabs each of those pieces and pulls that information out. We can see it's just simply collecting those strings and outputting to the screen. And that's how we can actually quickly work using Java to connect to a Mongo database. Now, to actually go through and do more work with that, take a look in the next video. You can see how we can actually write queries and actually access data inside those Mongo databases and do even more. I hope this is helpful. Cheers. See you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.